gonna do the first 20 episodes. A little pre-recording thing. I'm gonna go turn it on though, cause I think I'm ready. So yeah, let's get this party started. I look crooked. Well, hello everybody. No intro to this one because it's just me. I got some new equipment courtesy of my brother for Christmas. I look a little more official because I have a nice stand that comes off the table. Nice new black microphone, very chic. But yeah, I've been talking about doing this podcast for a while. Basically, since I wrapped up episode number 20 with Brad, I kind of just, it's crazy that I've already done 20 episodes. Like, that is insane to me. I think mostly because it took me so long to work up the courage to actually do the podcast, because I didn't think anybody would listen. And here we are, episode number 21, and I've had almost 2,000 downloads, 20 guests, or I guess 20 episodes, technically 18 guests, but it's honestly a trip. It's a trip being able to do it, so I'm sorry it took so long to get to this. I wanted to do this review a lot sooner, but with the holidays and I just moved into a new place, it's kind of been hectic, but here we are, January, whatever the fuck date it is. I probably should have looked at that. I'm gonna guess it's January 6th-ish. I don't know, doesn't matter, because we're in podcast land, and whenever you listen to this, it'll probably be January, February, March, April, or May. Maybe June, I don't know. But yeah, I'm super stoked to be back in podcast land, Podcastville, as Joey Diaz says. But I'm super excited, so let's get this show on the road. Unfortunately, I don't have something with me to play the audio clips, but I did go through every single episode and kind of pick out timestamps for everything. So if you're watching this or listening to this and you hear like, oh, these people talked about marketing at 12 minutes or whatever, I'm gonna go to that and check out what they have to say. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm not gonna be playing the audio from those episodes, but it's all good. Everything's gonna be fine. All right, so we're gonna start with the intro. The introduction is usually the best place to start. It's good to have an intro. It's kind of funny going back and listening to it, and I was having a hard time breathing, and I was nervous, and I wasn't sure that I could really captivate people yet. So it's kind of a trip just going back and listening to it and hearing, you know, me kind of talk about what the podcast is going to be about, and kind of just testing podcast waters there. So that was really cool to kind of go back and listen to that. I didn't listen to it for long though, because I didn't really care to just sit there and listen to my voice explain a podcast that I've done 20 episodes of. So fuck it. I went to Colton's episode number 2 with Colton Zeiler, and I feel like he was the perfect, like, real first guest to have on, because Colton and I have been friends for over 10 years, and him and I can sit down and bullshit and talk about whatever. And, it kind of started to make me feel comfortable with the whole thing. And yeah, he was just a great first guest to have on the podcast. And at 12 minutes, you can go on there and hear us talk about our history of playing music together. It all started with a hardcore punk band we were in called Chin Up. And 12 minutes, we kind of talked about how we played this basement show, and we played a Set Your Goals song twice, and people were climbing all over each other. And we kind of got nostalgic about that, and it's my only claim to toughness when I tell people about Chin Up, because that is the only time I've been in a tough, I don't know, if I feel it was pretty fucking tough, okay? But that was like hardcore punk, tough guy, rock and roll. But yeah, it was also just fun to talk about our history as human beings together and how far we've come, all the things we've done. And I'll go on the record right now and just say that I am so stoked to be able to still be in a band with him. He's one of the best bass players I've ever worked with, and just the way his mind works as far as writing bass parts and just being in a band is amazing. And if you ever get a chance to come to one of our shows, watch Colton. I use too many pedals now, and I don't move around as much as I used to, but that motherfucker jumps all over the place, and he goes hard every single show. It doesn't matter if it's the Lions Lair or the Summit main stage, he gives it everything he's got. Speaking of which, while we're still close to the beginning here, this Saturday, January 12th, there's a date for you. This Saturday, at 7th Circle with our boys in 1,000 Miles of Fire and a band called Cauldron Point and a band called Birdhouse. But that would be a super fun show because it's at 7th Circle. Nice little punk rock DIY venue. It's always fun to play there. It always puts me in this weird, silly mood where my jokes, I come up with some good jokes, but I'm probably gonna stray away from those so that we can actually play the songs. Telling jokes on stage is fucking hard, and I did it for so long because I grew up loving Blink-182, and hearing them do it made me feel like, oh, okay, so when I'm nervous I can just talk about bullshit. But what they don't tell you is not everybody's gonna laugh. Not everybody's gonna think you're funny, and some people are even gonna think you're negative funny. They're gonna think you're just stupid. So, that's a tip. You know what? Here's a tip, episode number 21 of the Don't Start a Band podcast. Everybody stop trying to be Blink on stage. Blink-182 has happened. It's done. I mean, technically they're still going on. It's beautiful what they do / did, but find your own way. Dick jokes and poop jokes are fun with your friends. But on stage, I don't know what it is. I guess I've gotten to the point where I just want to hear your songs. Unless you got something really funny to say. Yeah, so there's a little tip for you. Speaking of jokes, at 22 minutes and 47 seconds on Colton's podcast, we go into the beating of the dead horse, talking about how famous we are in Europe. And I make a little joke about Snapchatting Queen Elizabeth and her listening to our music in a bubble bath, drinking wine. And that is the one and only time I think Queen Elizabeth has ever been referred to as Liz by Colton. Episode number 3 was the 10 years in music. Again, it was fun to look back and actually listen to all those songs in the order of which the bands were, starting with Epic Stand, going to Writing Right, Host Club, Shoot to Please, all that. It was fun to go back and do that. I kind of realized that I probably shouldn't have let the songs play for so long, but again, it was, kind of cool little self-promoting thing. I enjoyed doing it, but another kind of funny thing about the first couple of podcasts, I know I shouldn't be so apologetic, but I just realized how much I fucking talk in all of those. I have these guests on to talk to them, to like get them to tell you their story and everything. And I talk up a storm on at least the first couple ones, telling stories about the Backseaters. And, it works. I am the host. I can say whatever the fuck I want. But I can promise you from now on, I'm going to make it more about the people and their stories. If you want to hear a podcast or do a live stream, like, comment, subscribe, where I just talk about my Backseaters tips and stories and all that shit, leave a comment. Tell me if you want me to write down a bunch of tips or anything like that, and I'll make a video or a podcast talking about that. But until you ask for it, I'm not going to do it, because if I do it without anybody asking for it, then that makes it look like I think so highly of myself that here are all my tips. You know what I'm saying? It's like the people who write a book on how to be a signed successful musician. You've never heard anything they've ever written, recorded, or performed. It's kind of goofy as fuck. But going on to episode number 4 with Bailey Ilora. That was a really fun episode as far as talking about songwriting and pulling inspiration from all kinds of different places. And at 32 minutes and 14 seconds on episode number 4 with Bailey Ilora, she kind of just talks about drawing inspiration from random places for writing songs and just kind of seeing everything as something that could have a song written about it. You know what I mean? I think when I listened to it, she was talking about seeing a picture on Tumblr and something along those lines, and she got the idea for the song at the end of the podcast, Must Have Been the Roses. But yeah, just drawing inspiration from songwriting. She also talked about, writing songs about Greek mythology, I thought that was pretty cool, because, I like songs with a little bit of depth, and if you can, kind of make an allusion to another story, you know what I mean, and kind of make it poetic, I think that's really, really unique, if you can kind of take something like that and make it your own. And I'm just a sucker for songwriters who tell stories. So, hello, singular YouTube live watcher. Glad to have you here. See, now it's like I'm sitting in the room with somebody. I do feel a little bit more comfortable now, unlike the intro episode where I was basically shitting myself. And that is the only episode that I ever started and stopped multiple times until I got it somewhat right, just because, I didn't know what the fuck I was going to talk about. But in Bailey's podcast, episode number 4, at 30 minutes and 57 seconds, we also just talk about writing music on feeling and not always making it so difficult and doing thing. It's just writing how you feel, and as long as you're honest about it, people are gonna love it. But if you're not honest, people can sniff out your bullshit. So write it on feeling. Episode number 5 was with Mike Schrader of Charlie Horse, And it was really cool getting to sit down with that dude because our bands have played shows a couple times, but I hadn't really had the opportunity to actually like have a, a real good conversation with him. So it was fun to sit down and laugh and kind of realize that him and I had the same, pop punk upbringing, Green Day, Blink-182. And he said some of the nicest things about the Phantom EP. So thank you so much for talking us up on your own podcast. That was rad. But yeah, at an hour and 29 minutes and 25 seconds on episode number 5 with Mike from Charlie Horse, we talk about the importance of buying CDs and how it totally gets overlooked. And it's probably been said a million times, but streaming is awesome if you know you want something new, but you don't know what you want, so you kind of just taste test and find all these different things. But if you find an artist that resonates with you and like really speaks to you and you want to support them, and most of all, you want that artist to keep making music and putting something out for you, I guess in a selfish manner, buy the CDs, because artists don't make jack shit off streams. And not only are you supporting the artist, but when you buy a CD, you're getting all of the hard work they put into it, the artwork, the thank yous and everything. So much work goes into that. And a big example that I can think of is If I Fail's Undesirable EP. I think it has 5 panels. It like goes out into a plus, I believe. And it's got pictures in all of them, and it's got the lyrics and thank yous. And, there was a lot of time put into, making that an enjoyable thing for whoever bought it. And, if you got it, you got it. If you didn't, sucks to be you, I guess. But, yeah, artists, and that's the thing is, maybe streaming is the most important thing, but I don't think artists will ever stop thinking about the aesthetic side of their art. And I know personally, I love having a physical copy when we put out something new, because it's really frustrating, time consuming, costs a lot of money to put out a new EP or album. And when you get to hold that physical copy in your hands, it was all worth it. So that's the biggest thing from Mike's podcast, is just talking about buying CDs. It's super important. Episode number 6 with the lovely Annika Cardoza, my fiance. It was fun to sit down and kind of include her in something that I'm passionate about. I've tried to get her to sing on a song with me before, just make a song. But it's cool because I love doing the podcast and it's part of my life. So it really made me happy to bring her in and, make her a part of this. So I just thoroughly enjoyed the whole conversation. But at 56 minutes and 38 seconds on episode 6 with Annika, she kind of gives advice on dating a musician, and not only a musician, but just somebody who has passion for something. Because if you are dating a musician or an athlete or an artist or something of that nature, you're not just dating them, but you're also dating their craft. And she talks about, or in that whole thing, we talk about how communication is key, and just saying, hey, this is the time I'm delegating to my passion, and then here's the time we'll have together. And, kind of compromising on, how much time you're giving and how much time you're taking is a really big thing. And, it's, dating someone with a passion, just having patience and understanding, and she has all of that, and I am beyond grateful for that. Taylor Park was on episode number 7, and him and I, he's god damn it, low battery on YouTube. I'm getting really sick of this. All right, there we are. What? My phone will die and it'll end the live stream when it's ready. So, this isn't going to be like a quick podcast because I know that people are probably a little tired of hearing just my voice. I kind of wanted this to be like a table of contents. Like, if you didn't know which one to start with out of the 20 episodes, you can go on there and say, oh, episode number 9, they talked about this, blah, 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 blah. I know I already said that, but for people on live, just letting you know. But Taylor Park was episode number 7, and he played bass in If I Fail for a little while, and he's played in a bunch of bands in Denver and in Fort Collins and stuff, and he's been really big in the music scene for a long time, and like going to hardcore shows and stuff. But him and I mostly just talked about how music, as cliche as it is, music like helps you with your life and maybe can explain how you're feeling better than you can. Because sometimes, I mean, definitely for me, there's been times where I have a feeling and I don't know what it is, and then I listen to a band or I hear a lyric that just describes it perfectly and almost puts me at ease because I go, okay, now I know how I'm feeling. But yeah, him and I just talk about being a better person. Oh shit, that was Taylor Hahn. I fucked up. I mean, Taylor Park and I did talk about that, but that's skipping forward to shit, that was episode number 18. Okay, so we're just gonna do both Taylors here. Sorry, I fucked up. Anyway, yeah, Taylor Park and I talked about that and being a better person and using music as like a self-help tool and kind of working through shit. And there's a good example of that at 42 minutes and 47 seconds of Taylor Park's podcast, which is actually episode number 18. Taylor Park, I fucked up. But yeah, episode number 18, Taylor Park, at 42 minutes and 47 seconds, we kind of talk about music and self-help and just like using music as a tool to live your life. So Taylor Hahn, him and I, his podcast was, I mean, they were all one of my favorites, but Taylor Hahn gave great studio advice. It was extremely beneficial to have a producer and engineer come in here and talk about not only the importance of making everything sound good, but also constructing your songs in a way that will make them marketable and just enjoyable for years to come, and not just for a couple months while you're promoting the hell out of it. Like, he talks about in there that he tries to make records that you will enjoy 3 months from now, 6 months from now, and you'll never not want to listen to him. And I mean, job well done with the Phantom EP, because I enjoy listening to that shit. I've always written music because I want to listen to it, and thankfully other people enjoy it. So yeah, it was awesome to have not only a producer but an engineer in here, because he was able to talk about some of the engineer side of things and just miking and trying different things. Like they said, for one of his more recent EPs that he did, or albums that he did, they actually made it sound like someone was being tied up. Like they added, and to use this word again, aesthetics to your ears. Like you were hearing a story being told, you were hearing a situation. It's not just song start, song end, song start. Like it's an experience. And Taylor Hahn definitely does that, and he works with dynamics and feelings and everything great that comes with a great record. Him and I we talk about always getting better at your craft, whether you're the musician or you're the engineer. You are always far from perfect and always far from the finish line of being a musician or an engineer or producer. You can always be better, and people always say that, but some people need to hear it more than fucking once, because people get to a point and they kind of like tabletop, or I can't remember. See, this is what's nice about having multiple people in here, is when I forget a word, they can say it and remind me. But plateau, yeah. You get to a point, and it's definitely happened for me with drums, guitar, kendama, my new fucking favorite little thing. Ask me about it. But yeah, you kind of hit a point where you plateau and you feel good about what you know and can perform, but still, if you don't feel like there's more left for you to learn, you're a cocky asshole, I guess. Because even the best guitar players don't know everything about the guitar. There's some kid waiting to come up and show them up. So just always getting better. And at 41 minutes and 30 seconds of episode number 7 with Taylor Hahn, he talks about going in, making the best record, and he works with the band so much and is so diligent and such a perfectionist that he makes sure that when you're handing your CD to someone, you're not going, here's our CD. So at the start of song number 2, I kind of fucked up that guitar riff, or at the start of song number 2, the guitars didn't come in quick enough, or at the end of song number 4, the drummer laid the sticks down and I want that taken out. That's a little inside joke. I said I'd never bring it up again and I fucked up, so sorry, Taylor Hahn. But yeah, he works with bands to a fine point of making sure that it is the best it can be and that you will love it and talk it up for all time. So episode number 8 was with Jake Myro from Sons of Steinway, and it was just good to sit down and have a talk with him and just hang out, because him and I went to high school together, and we both hated each other at the beginning of high school, but then became like really good friends by the end. And him and I have a very similar sense of humor, so it was fun to just sit down and fucking laugh with him and have a good time. The only thing I will say is I fucked up the audio on that podcast and you can't hear me for shit in it, but Jake Myro says a lot of good things about playing music and music theory. He knows a shit ton about music theory and just music in general. And 32 minutes and 23 seconds on episode number 8 with Jake Myro, he talks about music theory, but also just, again, being honest with your craft. You know what I mean? You can set it up like an equation and execute it how you see fit, but at the same time, if you're not feeling it, other people aren't going to feel it. And that's what music is. That's why people go to concerts, because I mean, for me, when I go and see Brian Fallon and I'm listening to him and he's singing a song like Honey Magnolia, like that is a very heartfelt song. Um, I'm just making sure it is Honey Magnolia. Yeah, the Grateful Dead is Sugar Magnolia. I was just making sure I didn't fuck that up. That would be great to have two big fuck ups in one podcast. But no, Honey Magnolia, anything he does with the Gaslight Anthem, like anytime I've gone to see them, like you can see when he's playing his songs that like there's emotion and you can feel it in your fucking guts that there is a story behind that and there's feeling. And Jake Myro's got the best of both worlds because he can talk about playing honest but also like fitting it or talking about it in terms of the science of music. So I thought that was pretty badass. And then I had some other high school friends come and hang out, Reed and Tyrell of Loot Cake Records. And at 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 47 seconds, they started to go into kind of what Loot Cake Records is all about. And they're both phenomenal DJs. Like, I'm not talking dubstep or house or anything like that. It's stuff like, if you listen to Tribe Called Quest instrumentals, jazzy, like they actually go to record stores, they get jazz albums and they loop them and put them in and make hip hop tracks out of them. Very like easy, chill listening. But also what they talk about as far as Loot Cake is it's not just a record label that makes music, but it's also kind of a multimedia conglomerate because Reed is also a phenomenal photographer and so is Tyrell for that matter. They're both very good at taking pictures. But yeah, it's a record company, but it's also a media company taking pictures, doing all that shit. And then Tyrell's working on his clothing line. They make stickers for people. They do all kinds of shit. They're so talented and it was kind of one of the longer podcasts, but it wasn't long enough to go into full detail on everything those dudes are capable of. They're fucking geniuses and they can do just about anything. Cool thing from Phil Hutchinson of Water Aerobics. Cool thing from his podcast was at 11 minutes and 10 seconds, he just talks about any artist or band who plays shows. Like, it's one thing to play a show, but he says, like, you're not fucking living until you've gone out and played on the street. And I've done it on the Manhattan Beach Pier, and it's kind of like, it is nerve-wracking, but like he was doing it on the street. People were walking by. And he said if you want to feel even more comfortable in your skin and like really learn how to draw people in while you're playing music, that's the way to do it. And I might have to take him up on that and try it one time. But episode, let's see, what was that? That was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 with Aaron Elrod of the Host Club. Him and I talked about a bunch of shit. Him and I also have history from me playing in the Host Club and filling in for them. And we've just remained extremely close friends. But at 1 hour, 6 minutes, and 20 seconds of episode 11 with Aaron Elrod, him and I just talked about not bullshitting and not, I guess it's on here a couple of times, but I just can't stress enough how important it is to be honest with your music and, not try and pander, unless that's what you're going for. If you're trying to write hits and you're trying to get the biggest record label and all that noise, that is totally fine. I'm not judging you. You're just playing a different game than me. It is what it is, but that's just not what Aaron and I do, or a lot of the people on this list. You know, we want to make the best honest art that we can. So at an hour, 6 minutes, and 20 seconds, he says some really good shit about writing honest music. And then episode 12 with Tim Graham at 51 minutes and 19 seconds. He goes into a not long, but like a very important theme of talking about aesthetic and marketing as far as your music, because you have this product, you have your music, but if you are writing Death Cab for Cutie songs, but you're looking like Suicide Silence, it's not gonna fucking work out. I mean, maybe it would because it's so weird, but yeah, it's super important to get your aesthetic down. And like he played it the smart way by doing the aesthetics and like getting all of that pre-planned before they started putting shit out. And a lot of bands, I'm guilty of it, in every single band I've ever been in, of you know, just hurrying to write songs as fast as we can and then record them and put them out as fast as we can and then worry about the pictures and what we're trying to go for and all that stuff. And I mean, now I'm doing it album by album, but he did it a really great way, by having it planned out and having a strategy as far as putting out content. And another Denver local artist, Night Love, does the same exact thing. He's got a music video for almost all of his singles, and he definitely developed this look, this retro 80s pop look that's just badass, and I haven't seen it really like pulled off well until, you know, he came on the scene. And I mean, I know Taylor had been playing music for a long time, but until Night Love became a part of the scene and has blown up. So I think that's badass, and I'm gonna try and get that dude on the podcast because I would love to sit down and talk with him and kind of pick his brain on all that stuff. And then episode 13, I might be fucking these numbers up, so don't go off the numbers, just go off the names. Let's see, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so yeah, episode number 13 with the Lycan. It was fun to sit down with those guys because they are also doing something different. They're a duo, and they're kind of doing this like prog rock thing, but they're like two of the most talented musicians I've ever seen. Like Mike is a beast on the drums and does shit that I can't even fathom, but it's like enjoyable. It's not so crazy that you're like, my mind is blown and I'm not enjoying this. It's more so like it just works. And Nico is an insane guitar player, and for not really knowing what he's doing on guitar, I mean, we talk about it in that podcast, how it's like not super important to have that 100% down and know what you're playing at all times, but still, it's insane the shit he does on guitar and the pedals he uses. I'm a sucker for pedals, so I gotta give props to him for that. And then episode number 14 with Almost Maine. David and Adam were super fun to sit down with. They're funny guys. They're fun to hang out with, and they're also killing it marketing. You know, you want to talk about some of the best podcasts for marketing? Here you go. Best podcast for marketing would be number 7 with Taylor Hahn. We go into it a little bit. Episode number 9 with Reed and Tyrell. And then Tim Graham from Rozu, that dude, he's got a lot to say on marketing, and it's all golden. I remember after doing the podcast with Tim, I had a headache afterwards because I was trying to process everything he was saying and like really lock it in. But just so much information. And then yeah, Almost Maine, same thing, just marketing geniuses, like as far as their music videos and their sound. You know, they did it the right way. They started playing, you know, All Time Low, Blink-182, like pop punk early in their, you know, teenage career of Almost Maine, and then they've developed. And kudos to them because they're popular, and they, you know, started gaining their popularity with the Blink-182 Almost Maine sound, and you know, they've carried it into their new, like, more rock alternative sound as they've grown up. And I think that's awesome that they're going back to honesty. They're writing the music that they want to write. So an hour and 13 minutes. We actually go into a whole thing about, you know, being a local band and making people take you seriously, because when you meet people and you say that you're a local band, they automatically think that you're playing in a garage. I don't know why, especially in Colorado, it gets fucking cold and not everybody's gonna play in the garage, but they also, you know, think it's just a band playing cover songs in a basement, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going out like bleeding your soul out to people, telling them that you're in a band, like, you take this shit kind of seriously. But yeah, we just, the way we talk about it is kind of just like keep your head up, because when you tell people, they're not going to be super stoked on it at first. But you know, once they listen to you, then they'll dig it. All right, I got 10% battery. So we're just gonna finish this up. Episode number 15 with Wes Luna of Stereo Shifter, Over Under, and Solo. He just kind of brings up a good point. Don't book yourself too often, because if you book yourself too often, you know, a lot of people will say gig as often as you can. And I think it's super important when you're a band like fresh starting out, because not only do you want to get yourself in front of as many people as possible, but you want to meet as many people, bands, promoters as possible. But once you get to the point where you have a following, people are interested in seeing your band, you can't be playing super often, because if you're trying to sell tickets like you do with Live Nation or a lot of the venues in town, you know, if you play 1 week and then the next week you're like, hey, I got another show, will you come out? And they go, I just saw you last week. You know, that's a huge piece of advice. Like, when you're starting out, play as much as you can, and then realize the point when people give a shit what you're doing, and then kind of make them want it. My episode 16 with Dakota of Together, period. He has a streetwear clothing brand called Together. They're actually about to put out a new drop. It's pretty exciting. I've seen it, and you should be excited. But yeah, he talks about his clothing, but you know, something I took away from it, and I think you can apply to music, is wanting people to honestly like your music. You know, because a lot of people, you can pay money to get your song like on a commercial. You can pay money to get it in front of people, and like, you know, pay and push it to be passively listened to. But as far as his clothing, you know, he wants you know, his friends like it. I think it's dope. But he wants his friends to wear it and for people around his friends to see it and dig it and them wear it because they like to wear it, not because fucking Kanye was wearing Together on Snapchat. I mean, he did once, but big fucking deal. Wink, wink. And then 17 with Mr. Griffith Johnson. I apologized to so many people so many times because I felt like I made it too much of an interview, but there's just so much good content and I was way too hard on myself. And that episode, I mean, we go into marketing, we go into growing as a musician. You know, we talk about our friendship, and he's one of the most genuine people I've ever met in my life, and he's just got some really good advice. And a big thing I got from our podcast together, and something I wholeheartedly believe in, is playing to a click track or a metronome, however you want to say it. You know, a lot of jam bands and stuff, like you'll jam and you'll vibe, but you have to be super fucking tight to vibe and not like drag or speed up or anything like that. Everybody's got to be feeling that internal tempo and tempo change. But if you really want to be tight and on point and make your band the best it can be live, play to a fucking click track. I'm telling you, it'll change your whole sound. It changed the backseaters. I did it the whole time I was playing drums. It changes the professional aspect of your band, I promise. Yeah, I already talked about Taylor Park and self-help, you know, how music helps you, so. Episode number 19 with my boys in 1,000 Miles of Fire that I'm playing a show with this Saturday, January 12th at 7th Circle, playing with 1,000 Miles of Fire. Those guys are funny as hell, and I had such a fun time sitting down with them and laughing, and they're goofy, and as much as I hated the fact that Coy hates John Mayer, I respect those dudes and what they're doing, and I enjoy their music. So I will overlook Coy's hatred for John Mayer because I love them. Period. And then episode number 20, we've gotten to episode number 20. 20 episodes. Again, I just want to say thank you so much. I'll save that till after this. But episode number 20 with Bradley Anderson. He's a tattoo artist, and him and I had an incredible conversation. We talked about life and just not being better than anybody else. And a big thing we talked about is, you know, living with passion and having a purpose for, you know, giving yourself a purpose for your day-to-day, you know, living with a purpose and not just passively wasting time and trying to get through to the next thing, you know, and really taking what you love seriously. Going back to 1,000 Miles of Fire, at 41 minutes and 46 seconds, they give some good tour tips. But at an hour and 8 minutes and 13 seconds on episode number 20 with Brad Anderson, tattoo artist, him and I kind of talk about the, you know, relationship between music and tattoos and how it kind of coincides. And I mean, throughout the whole podcast, we talk about, you know, just how similar it is. I mean, because of both art, so they're going to be similar regardless, but tattoos and music go hand in hand. So, and also at an hour and 9 minutes and 9 seconds, he delves even deeper into the passion aspect of being a tattoo artist. And, you know, he is someone who tattoos and like actually thoroughly enjoys making art as opposed to just, you know, having this one skill to make money. So, yeah, 20 episodes of the Don't Start a Band podcast. We're in fucking 2019. This year is going to be crazy because I'm going to have a full year of podcasts. And I don't know, maybe we'll have 100 podcasts by the end of the year. We'll see. But again, I want to say thank you so much to everybody who has supported this podcast, everybody who's downloaded it, everybody who has taken 5 minutes to check out an episode. It means the world to me that you're even intrigued by what I'm doing because, like I said, I wasn't sure that anybody was going to give a shit about this. So to have so many people give so many shits is unbelievable to me, and I'm extremely grateful for it. And I'm not sitting here like, well, yeah, they should be listening to me. I'm just like, the only thing I can say is thank you, and it means the world to me, and I promise to keep trying to give you the best content I have. So here's to 2019 and the first 20 episodes. Thank you guys so much, and I love you. Yeah, I'm not sure what song I'm gonna put at the end of this. I might put a Backseater song. Maybe I'll put an old Backseater song. People on YouTube, if you want to find out what song it was, check it out on Apple Podcasts, Google Play. People on the podcast, if you want to see me point and wave my finger and do my little head bob at the camera, make sure you go like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on everything. Fuck it. Hit that sub on everything. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, lay it down. Alright, I'm done babbling. This is episode 21 of the Don't Start a Band podcast. Let's go 2019. Thanks everybody, my phone's about to die.